Namaste, everyone. I hope you all are doing great. I have with me Kirill and Lani, who basically, were the brainchilds of sort of creating this. Kirill, who leads as a partner director, leads our Cosmos DB team, and Lani, who manages all our communications, are helping me with this keynote. So I did want to sort of thank them at the offset. So I'm really excited to be here for the, India's largest Azure community conference, and share and recognize the efforts of the MVP community in India and the community experts who've created this amazing 3-day conference. So today, I'm told you'll hear from more than 200 plus speakers presenting over 200 sessions, 3 exclusive workshops, overall covering almost all the cloud services that can help you learn and love Microsoft Azure and be efficient at your current and future roles. But before we begin, I want to take a moment and say it's a pleasure to join you for today's event. Across Microsoft, if there's one thing we truly appreciate, it's the value these connections with the community and the personal touch, brings to the table. I know I look forward to, joining you maybe in person. With this global pandemic, things have been a little hard for all of us, but hopefully we get to meet sometime in person in the future. Now let's get started as I take you over the next, several minutes here on a journey around Azure for developers. Let's build an app together. Next slide, Carl. Over the last 2 years, businesses all over the world were challenged to operate in new ways. All of us needed to meet customers where they are, where they were, increasingly in digital space. Accelerating transformation for businesses big and small. At the end of the day, businesses turn to developers like yourselves to drive this innovation. And developers had to confront these challenges at a rapid pace. Like in our experience working with developers over the last couple of years here, you need to build smarter and faster. You need to move from idea to code to cloud seamlessly. Developers need new applications to be resilient in the face of failures, scale dynamically based on load. So if your load grows, the application should just scale. And finally, developers need amazing security. So features like intelligent threat protection in near real time and fine-grained security at each layer. And all these have to be solved at scale. This requires a new approach to building applications. Next slide, please. Whether your goal is to modernize existing applications, build cloud-native applications, collaborate and contribute to open source, or rapidly build applications with low-code platforms, Azure is here to support you with the right tool for your job to increase velocity and enable you and your team to build on your own terms. You can bring your existing applications as is on virtual machines. Modernize them with Azure Kubernetes Service if you want, or rebuild or build completely new cloud-native applications with our PaaS and serverless offerings. You can leverage our low-code offerings, our Power Platform, which is literally the #1 low-code platform today, to bring productivity to your business. You can choose the database of your preference. That's something very, very close to my heart, being a part of the data team at Microsoft, with all the popular databases available. So not just SQL Server, Postgres, MySQL, MongoDB, Cassandra, Graph APIs, anything you name it. We offer them as managed services and serverless options with scale limitlessly. Finally, you can use these frameworks and tools of your choice within familiar GitHub and VS Code environment, integrated with Azure to automate your developer inner loops. Next slide, please. To help us explore how Azure gives you the velocity, the reliability, and security you need, let's go on a journey of a startup. Let's take an example startup getting started on Azure. We'll follow the life cycle of a developer team and application on Azure, all through the lens of the journey of that startup, from 0 to billions of users with their application, right? Even though it's hypothetical, if you go to the next slide, on our story, the startup is Adatum, looking to gauge interest in their proposed new product. It's a new ride-sharing application. And my hope is with this, you get a sense of how to build these things in Azure. So first of all, it's a startup, right? They don't have a lot of money. They basically just plan to build a landing and a sign-up page for their application to help gauge the product market fit and excite their potential investors. Next slide. They don't have months and a lot of money to spend, right? I mean, it's a startup with a couple of developers. So they don't have that kind of money to spend. To get started, they create a Next.js project using their favorite Node.js framework and generate a landing page with it. They push their code to GitHub. Next. With their whole team now can contribute using the familiar interface of GitHub, as you see. Next. To deploy the site on GitHub repo to Azure, on the GitHub repo, they use static web apps and connect it to their GitHub site. Now, Azure Static Web Apps is a great service for building single-page applications, which is what they have to do right now. Azure Static Web Apps will help add the right GitHub actions and settings needed to automate publishing to Azure on new commits on any branch that they need. Next. To store data, the team decides to use flexible server for PostgresQL. PostgresQL is one of the most popular relational databases, especially in the open source community. For storing, and they use PostgresQL to store the signups that they get and they receive when they actually go public. Now, flexible server comes with the benefit of being able to efficiently handle bursts of traffic to the site if their site hits the top of Hacker News. Next, Azure Static Web Apps also has support for publishing Azure functions, which means we can use API routes in Next.js to securely access our database. That's important. Security is super important. With just these few simple pieces, they have everything they need for their soft launch. Remember, very few developers just trying to put a landing page together to gauge interest in the product that they're imagining or they're envisioning. So as we just saw, our team at Datum was able to take advantage of the tools that they're familiar with, right? Like the development environment, GitHub, open source databases, etc., that they're all familiar with in a very, very simple manner. They're able to use their favorite languages, frameworks, and databases. And everything you see here can dynamically scale, right? So if your load grows, your application can dynamically scale with the load from low to high demand as they launch their site. Now, here's the best part. The best of all is that they're able to build all of this on Azure's free tier. The services they use, all of them have forever free tiers. So they'll only have to start paying if their site ends up being very successful with their launch. Till then, they don't have to pay anything, $0. If you're curious to learn more, you can check out what's available in free Azure. The next, please. As you can see here, you get more than 25 services free always on Azure, and more free services free for a year, and a handsome credit to start with. So with the combination of all of these, if you have a brilliant idea along with your friends, you can develop something very quickly, do all the signal testing you want very, very easily. All right. Now, coming back to our story. With a huge interest demonstrated for their soft launch, they basically looked at the signals, and the demand's been amazing. Of course, ride sharing will be popular. They secured funding from their venture capitalists, and now they're building their V1 ready for a full launch. Next. Their goal is to launch in Mumbai first. And why Mumbai? Because the second test of India versus New Zealand cricket series is coming up in the start of December. They want to use that event, that cricket match, to drive the bus for their launch, as they're confident India was going to win that test match. With that ambitious deadline in mind, they need to be able to build something fast, but have rock solid quality and scaling, right? I mean, with the growth, they don't have a lot of time, but they have to build something super fast and scale. Now, thinking for their initial launch, they again reach for Azure's Developer Cloud and their favorite tech. Since this is their V1, and the timeline is tight, they need to avoid over-engineering their system. A classic problem that all developers face. You can very easily over-engineer systems, but they don't have the time to do that. But if they succeed, they also know that they'll have to scale out fast and capitalize on that success, right? That's the important piece over here. As developers, I'm sure all of you have, tight deadlines to meet, but you don't want to cut corners, because eventually, if things are not designed right, they'll come to hurt you. And this is the challenge Datum, our startup here, faces. They have a tight deadline to meet, so they really want to avoid over-engineering, but they at the same time invest in building something that can scale. So what do? They basically decide to go with a microservices architecture, which is, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with, it's effectively in cloud. When you think about building cloud-native applications, that's really the core essence. How do you design the architecture with loosely coupled components that can work together in ways that your system becomes inherently a lot more reliable? So if something fails, you can quickly, bring it back up, And it's a lot more scalable because as your system is built out of microservices, it can scale significantly based on load. But then, and in this case, our developers in the story here are essentially leveraging various cloud native services than managing their own infra. The last thing you want to do as a developer is spend all your time and resources in managing infrastructure. You really want to make sure that you work with managed services that do all of that for you, so you can focus on basically the business logic that's needed in your applications, right? That's really where you want to be spending time. Now, for the actual API layer, the developers of a Datum decide to use Apollo's GraphQL plugin for Azure Functions and connect that to Cosmos DB. So next, similar to our previous example, Azure Functions will handle the scaling in or out to meet your demand. Azure Functions can also run in Kubernetes if you decide to sort of use that later on. That's important because Kubernetes and containers have sort of become the de facto standard for a lot of new and scalable workloads. Azure Functions also has support for WebSockets, thanks to Azure Signal R service, which makes real-time location sharing in their app a breeze. It's very easy for them to track things in locations in real time, which, as you can imagine, for a ride-sharing app, is very core to the experience of their application. So that is important. Now, our team at Datum also takes advantage of durable functions to handle the orchestration of rides themselves. Durable functions make it easy to write durable workflows so we can easily track when we are waiting for a driver to be assigned, monitor a driver and use where the driver is during a trip, and react to the ride to get done to handle things like billing, giving feedback, getting feedback from the rider on the trip, and things like that. So all those durable workflows can be done using durable functions. Next, please. Now, Azure Cosmos DB. It's. I mean, for those of you who've already used it, it's pretty amazing. I think some of you may know that Walmart.com, the #2 e-commerce site in the world, essentially completely runs on Cosmos DB. It's a pretty phenomenal story of how they basically reimagined the future of the world of their e-commerce platform on Cosmos DB. Now, it's perfect for this application. Cosmos DB is designed to scale horizontally. It auto-scales automatically, right? So with your load, it basically can auto-scale by itself, and will work with both their V1 and their V100 as their business scales and they become like, the most popular ride-sharing application in India. Cosmos DB can handle that scale, starting with very, very small workloads. They also decided to leverage the change feed capability of Cosmos DB. It's very, very popular for microservices architectures to trigger microservices as implemented in Azure Functions, right? To allow for that event-driven architecture. If some event happens, it's captured as a change feed event inside Cosmos DB, and then based on that, you can trigger an action using Azure Functions. And that's the foundations of how event-driven programming comes into play. So this will also come in handy later on, and I'll sort of, when I get to the analytics part of what they're trying to do. So we'll wait on that. So if we move to the next slide here, Kirill, to recap the architecture, the Datum uses services that are all serverless. So everything that the Datum team or the developers have used is all serverless, essentially, which is the foundation of how microservices architectures get built. And they all have limited horizontal scaling. So Cosmos DB Functions and others. They use GraphQL Apollo module for Azure Functions as their API layer, use durable functions for orchestration. Remember when I said keeping track of where the driver is and all those events that, feedback from the driver, etc. All that's using durable functions. They use Azure Cosmos DB to be prepared for any amount of traffic. Now, Cosmos DB offers serverless mode, which means a Datum will not pay anything when the application is idle, which is great. And Cosmos DB also happens to be the only database across all the hyperscale clouds, by the way, on this planet, that doesn't just guarantee you a financially backed SLA on availability, but it guarantees you a financially backed SLAs on throughput and latency as well. So upwards of 99% of all your queries will complete in 10 milliseconds. Like pretty much, if you look at Microsoft Teams, Xbox Live, Azure portal itself, I mean, all of Microsoft's critical services, run on Cosmos DB, which is really why it was designed to sort of, support that scale. So Datum also uses real-time messaging services like Event Hub and Signal are to bring those real-time experiences into their app powered by Cosmos DB change feeds. So the change feed inside Cosmos DB is very, very critical. If you haven't checked it out, please do, because it's really going to be amazing for you as you're thinking about building out these event-driven architectures. And finally, we believe developers are best when they can focus on code, right? Their business logic, whatever you're trying to get out of the app, not managing infrastructure, like I said. This is often best achieved by taking advantage of cloud-based services. So if you only use VMs, well, you have to manage infrastructure, right? So when you use a database like Cosmos DB as an example, which is a managed service, high availability, disaster recovery, performance best practices, security best practices are all handled for you, right? Essentially, you're guided through. So all those things are taken care of from an infrastructure management standpoint. Scaling is taken care of for you, and all you do is focus on the business logic of your application. And when often you want to plan for horizontally scaling architecture that can react to growing demands at growing different speeds, is really where this impact lands up being a lot more. So using services like Azure Cosmos DB, Azure Functions, Event Hubs are perfect in these scenarios, because you want to scale reliably, you want to scale horizontally as your workload grows without having to manage infrastructure. We also want things to just work, right? Like as developers, you don't want to worry about, hey, the uptime and this and that. Like so using services that have built-in integration can save time to figure out how to glue and stitch these pieces together, right? So we've already made integration between functions and Cosmos DB through our change feed architecture extremely reliable. So you basically can just use that capability without having to worry about, hey, will this work? Are these things going to be reliable or not? And so these principles and architecture patterns aren't just advice that I'm sort of presenting here, right? This is literally, we bet our business on it. So Microsoft itself uses these patterns, and thanks to these services, Microsoft Teams is an example, which is our flagship service for communicated, sharing, having teams, meeting people, etc. Was able to scale to more than 7 trillion transactions per day, believe it or not, 7 trillion transactions per day with their multiple petabyte scale database on Cosmos DB, right? So all of Microsoft Teams runs on Cosmos DB to meet the demand of the business growing at digital space. So if we move to the next slide, Kirill, you see the usage of Cosmos DB, right? I mean, it's actually pretty phenomenal to see in the pandemic, since so many of us basically started working remotely, the usage of tools like Microsoft Teams significantly grew. I mean, just overnight, we went, the scale grew several tens of X, right? And it was pretty amazing to see. Our biggest challenge, frankly, was to ensure that we have enough capacity that we are able to provision. And that Microsoft Cosmos DB was able to scale with no problems to support that growth. It's pretty phenomenal. All right, next, if we move to the next slide, Carol, plenty of startups, so it's not just Microsoft, have also leveraged these patterns with Azure and Azure Cosmos DB. For example, in Mobi, which many of you may be familiar with, it's a leading mobile advertising space, uses Cosmos DB for their customer data platform, handling more than 1 million transactions per second. Now, Tanla uses Cosmos DB to serve OTP communications, handling millions of messages per second. So these are just a few examples of very successful cases. Like I said, Walmart, Coca-Cola, several others are using Cosmos DB for their success. Now, finally, let's take a look into the future of our startup that is Atombit. They successfully launched in Mumbai. It turns out everything went smooth in December, and they've hit success. So they basically are on this hockey stick growth right now. Now, while their app has handled the dynamic scale of the traffic well, they did find a business problem. They found that they struggle with always having enough drivers, and sometimes users start to complain about wait times. Hey, I requested a cab and it's been too long, sometimes hours, and that's creating a lot of dissatisfaction. So since their launch, they added a data scientist to their dev team, and they have some ideas on ways to identify the problems. The team starts to explore using search pricing to tackle the problem. Can they ask some customers to pay more if they want the guaranteed SLA? Now, one of the easiest ways to process a lot of data in Azure for analytics is using this service called Azure Synapse. It's a flagship service for doing real-time analytics at really, really high scale and concurrency. And the most amazing part is using this capability called Synapse Link. They can connect their production Azure Cosmos DB to Synapse in no time with just a single click. Now, one amazing thing about Synapse Link for Cosmos DB is you can use it to provide real-time analytical insights into your operational data with no impact on your production. So your operational database sees no impact on their performance. So you can safely run real-time analytic queries. And what we guarantee is that within 30 seconds of your transaction committing in Cosmos DB, we'll make it available in a columnar format to Synapse, so you can do your analytics in them. So you don't have to worry about ETL and other headaches that come with sort of maintaining that infrastructure. Synapse just does all of that for you. With the next slide, please. With Azure Synapse Link for Cosmos DB, now you're able to extract insights from the production Cosmos DB database in real time. And they can also leverage Power BI, which is the industry-leading BI platform, to visualize places with their biggest pain. Which places have the most traffic when it comes to people questioning? They can start by manually adjusting search prices, right? So they can say, hey, look, this place in Mumbai, as an example, suddenly has a lot of people, your customers, then can we ask them to pay a little bit more to get a guaranteed SLA? They start by manually adjusting it, which visibly helps improve rider performance. But as they add more cities, they can't do this manually, right? Like they have to scale. Fortunately, their new talented data scientists develops a model which can run in Synapse, their analytics platform, using Apache Spark interface to recommend what pricing model to use in which area. Right, so imagine, based on the area, based on the traffic, your machine learning model is built in Spark, in Synapse, is able to basically create that thing in real time. Now combine that with the low latency from Cosmos DB's analytical store. They can react in near real time to surges in demand, like a cricket match finishing up, and everybody wants to go home, so everyone's sort of calling, using their app and calling, cabs. They can basically handle that through search pricing, determine these events as they happen in real time through the model that they've built out. So, the combination of Azure Functions, Cosmos DB, Synapse Link from Cosmos DB, Synapse, effectively is giving them this amazing, application with backend analytics and machine learning models in Spark to adjust in real time, to handle their business. Now, users can sometimes opt in for a search price and pay more for a faster pickup. That's key. So it basically helps drivers, basically in situations like these, the customers are happy because they get guaranteed SLAs, and they're able to sort of create this marketplace of being a broker with the application. With this, now riders can see a slightly higher price, but get picked up faster. This also helps bring in more drivers into the overall pool, keeping pickup times down for everyone. Thanks to their hard work, the ability to extract key insights from their data, Adatum goes on to be a huge success and launch in almost cities around the world. Now, as we just saw, Azure Synapse acts as an analytical hub to extract and visualize, and then put them in action to improve outcomes for your users. For us developers, we saved a ton of time and effort by having turnkey integration of our database and not having to worry in setting up these complex ETL pipelines, or having a negative impact on the performance of our operational store. All that's taken care of by Synapse Link. Now, with low latency, you don't have to worry about the extra overhead of creating separate warm and cold paths, right? We can also leverage our favorite tools and empower our data scientists with Apache Spark, SQL, and other tools just in one spot, scaling serverlessly. Now, this also plugs in very well with services like logic applications. So imagine, based on some analytics and insights that you got out of Synapse from the data that came from Cosmos DB using Synapse Link, you want to take some action. You can use that to logic apps, or you can use that to Power Automate if you want to use the low-code environment. All these things are integrated very well. And the advantage with this, with logic apps and Power Automate deeply integrated with the insights that are coming out, is you can have automation of your workflow. So there's no manual human that's actually taking the action. All your workflows are triggered automatically in your apps, in your business applications to react to these insights. And finally, we're able to make better decisions when you visualize your data using like an excellent platform like Power BI to help your whole team understand what the application and the users are doing. Now, with that, while the company we discussed today isn't real, of course, but the journey that they followed very much is. This is really how startups start and grow and scale. Thousands of teams are building on these patterns. Like I said, Microsoft itself, 20 years ago, started with a single product, Azure Synapse. Today, they have 100 plus products, 100 plus applications, and has built on these patterns and are accelerating the future of their businesses. Developers are a driving force in this change. Like I mentioned, in this digital transformation that we're going through, you as developers are the key foundation of the changing force. And our Microsoft Cloud, Azure, and others tools are here to help you build faster and the right tools for your job. Using cloud native services, developers are building more sophisticated applications in faster times with lower overhead. For development maintenance, meaning developers can deliver more innovation than ever before. And data is the lifeblood of applications today, right? The easier you can unlock insights and improve your experience in near real time as you get data, the more users you'll help and the greater impact you'll achieve. This change may be the most transformative change we see in app development teams, where app development and data science are not silos anymore. Your app developers and your data science are just one team. And Synapse Link, which ties Cosmos DB to Synapse, is the key ingredient that breaks down the silos. If you and your team are looking to build the next application, we hope to build it on Azure. We have fantastic capabilities like I described. We're here for you with whatever you need, and we truly believe your success is our success. To get started, you can visit the link that I shared here to get started for free. We hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about what Microsoft offers for developers, and I really enjoyed spending this time with you, and I hope you basically take this opportunity to learn a little bit more about the various capabilities that I spoke about. And as a closing note, I want to thank our hosts in a phenomenal job creating this community and setting this event up. We hope to continue to tune into the event throughout the day and learn from the experts from all over the world virtually. We encourage you to participate in the free Azure certification drives and the hackathon that's organized. And I'm told you'll have an awesome chance. You may have a chance to make some really awesome giveaways. And thank you for the time. And I believe we may be at time, but I'm happy to take it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rohan. Thanks for excellent speech. And so, Rohan, we have only one question. We have 4 minutes. I just wanted to utilize. Can we hear some words about NoSQL versus Azure Cosmos DB? It's from one of the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, and Kirill over here, I mean, is our leader who actually built Cosmos DB and leads it. So let me start, Kirill, and feel free to chime in if you have any. So Cosmos DB obviously started off as a NoSQL store, right? If you look at foundationally, we built it to have guaranteed, it's a scaled out architecture, right? And it's globally distributed. So effectively, which means your single database can span multiple Azure regions inside the world, and we guarantee that the data is replicated in near real time, right? So you make a change somewhere, and the other big part is the way the database is architected is your data gets partitioned, and in ways where we are able to guarantee that on every node on which a query gets executed, a certain amount of resources are given to ensure that your query completes in a certain amount of time. Now, our ambitions with Cosmos DB, of course, are a lot more, right? So we support Mongo today, we support Cassandra, we support our variant of SQL, we support Graph. But just given the success we've seen and the value, when you think about this new SQL moment where there is a marriage between what used to be relational databases and what used to be NoSQL is coming together, our approach is to essentially take Cosmos DB in that direction. Right, so this is a little bit more of a vision and a roadmap statement. It's fantastic what we already have, but you'll see us greatly advance that in that direction.
Thank you, Rohan. Yeah, absolutely. I think the basic Cosmos DB is your fast distributed database, and we will offer the APIs no matter which API you prefer and love. You will have it as applications, as we saw in this example. Applications are betting on scale-out architecture. And Cosmos DB is there to help you so that you don't have to build it yourself and shard yourself.
Thank you. Thanks, Rohan.
Hey, thank you, Satish. Thank you, Kirill. Thank you, Lani.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kirill. Thanks, Lani.